So I woke up today to some bad news. It appears as though NetherRealm is going to be developing Mortal Kombat 12 before Injustice 3. Now, granted, the Mortal Kombat series has existed for longer, but I do find it grand that we've had 2 Injustice games, 11 Mortal Kombat games, and now they're reprioritizing another Mortal Kombat game, even though they just released a Mortal Kombat game. Now, let me just first say this. Why is this happening? Well, according to the report, it is essentially because the merger with WB that's happening with Discover or Discovery, whatever it's called, with TLC and all that. This merger is happening, and even there may be a split with some of the WB Games companies. So a lot of people are asking, well, is Rocksteady going to the Discovery branch of the company or Warner Brothers? It's all technical jargon. It's not super important unless you're really into that side of the business side of the entertainment industry. But the main thing that we need to know is that it appears as though we're not getting Injustice 3 anytime soon, which begs the question, what games are they developing? I find it so amusing that we look at the film side of the equation, right, where they just announced a Black Canary film, which literally, probably 7 people asked for. Meanwhile, you have thousands of fans on Twitter clamoring for a Injustice video game or a Superman video game or a Flash video game and what have you. And instead, they haven't released a video game since Injustice 2. That was the last DC video game. Now, you can certainly count Telltale Batman in that, but it's not a AAA tentpole video game release. Their last really big release that actually sold was Batman Arkham Knight in 2015. So we're now 6 going on 7 years after their last big AAA blockbuster video game release. And, I guess I just don't understand, because it seems self-evident that nothing is being delayed on the film side of things. They're still going full steam ahead, and they're building out HBO Max. They're doing more with their films than ever. They're announcing all these films. They have a Peacemaker film coming out, who is the least likable character from that film, The Suicide Squad, which I love, by the way. Great movie. But I mean, let's be honest, the weakest character in that film that you care the least about is John Cena's Peacemaker, compared to even King Shark. I'd rather see a King Shark spinoff. At least he's kind of adorable and likable. Peacemaker is a traitor in the movie. Spoilers, by the way. But, come on, that's just ridiculous. So anyway, this is all an aside from the fact that we're not getting Injustice 3 for at least several years. And that's just very disappointing, because Mortal Kombat is great. There's nothing wrong with Mortal Kombat. I'm very glad they got to make Mortal Kombat 11. It had a robust DLC expansion period. They just announced 2 months ago that they are no longer supporting Mortal Kombat 11 with post-release DLC, which is totally fine. That's not a big deal. But Mortal Kombat 12 now coming as their next game. Now, this is unprecedented for them, because at least in the recent era, because they did Mortal Kombat, then Injustice, then Mortal Kombat again, then Injustice 2, and then they just did Mortal Kombat 11. You would have thought that, okay, naturally, you would follow with Injustice 3, or something even more exciting than Injustice 3, which could have been Marvel versus DC. Hopefully not a Marvel fighting game, a straight-up Marvel fighting game. I wouldn't be particularly interested. I'd be interested, but I would much rather them make a DC video game. But in terms of my tier ranking of which I would prefer, I would love Marvel vs. DC is number 1, then a DC standalone game, and then a Marvel standalone game from them. But nonetheless, I would be very happy with an Injustice 3. The problem is they're citing this potential merger, and they're saying they don't know if they're going to be a part of Discovery, and there's this sort of looming financial debacle, on the horizon. And I guess I understand it. I'm not faulting them for it, but I'm going to be honest, it's quite disappointing. It really is. Because the last Injustice game, I believe, was released in 2017. I'm pretty sure. And then Mortal Kombat 11, I want to say 2019, roughly. So you would think right about now, 2 years later, that we'd be getting Injustice 3. And again, I'm not trying to sound like an entitled fanboy, but I just think it's very frustrating that there's so much energy being invested into the film side of the equation in these movies and TV shows that, again, nobody really asked for. I mean, a Peacemaker TV show, okay. A Black Canary film that's based on a Black Canary that is very much so unlike, as much as I like Birds of Prey as a movie, I think it's good. Pretty much every character that is in that movie is completely different than their comic book character and their animated series character and, the character that we knew. So it's almost like they should have just given them all new names, because Cassandra Cain, for instance, it's she's 11. It's okay. Whatever. That's kind of an aside. But again, it's just very frustrating as a fan to see that they're prioritizing their film so much, and then as soon as a video game comes around, it's like, whoa, what about this merger that's happening? This might be a big problem for us. And now all of a sudden we're not getting Injustice 3 anytime soon. So that's pretty much the update. Injustice 3 not happening anytime soon. It's not even, they're going to do an entire another game before Injustice 3. So we're looking at about 4 years away. So you're looking at around 2025 for Injustice 3. So yeah, I mean, that's going to like... At this point, it's kind of like, why even do it? If it's gonna be, let's see, 2017 to 2024, or 2025 rather, that's 8 years. If we're talking about an 8-year delay, I mean, this is not Grand Theft Auto. Like, this series is not revered like Grand Theft Auto or something. You know, people like it, and just is cool, but do I want to wait almost a decade for another installment? I mean, not particularly. I mean, Arkham, yes, I would. Injustice, I don't like the series enough to actually be excited for 8 years to wait for the game. So, I don't know. Injustice is, for me, at this point, is kind of like, whatever. I'm going to have to wait 4 to 5 years for the next one, after I've already been waiting 3 to 4 years. So, it's kind of just like, whatever. But, with that being said, I am very excited for DC Fandom, which is happening not next month, but the month after that. We should get a lot of really exciting stuff from Gotham Knights and Justice League Kill the Suicide Squad, or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, rather. My apologies. I think both those games are going to look incredible. Very excited to see Gotham Knights in particular. That's the one that I've been the most excited for, but do not anticipate anything at DC Fandom from NetherRealm in any way. It looks like they are doing Mortal Kombat 12, and then we'll get into Injustice. So